How do you build a barbarian in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons? This week, I show you 2 builds for your barbarian. One is quick and easy, and the other is a little weird. Hello players and GMs, I am Reese, and welcome to another video by Jetpack7. Before we get started, I want to remind you all to please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I am super excited that we have just hit 3,000 subscribers only about 2 months after hitting 2,000, so thank you to everyone who has just recently joined the channel. I seriously could not keep doing this if it weren't for your support, so let's keep it up and let's see how quickly we can get to 4,000. This week is the beginning of a new series I have dubbed Quick Build, Weird Build, where I give a quick and standard build of a class followed by a more unusual one. The nice thing about this series is that I can do multiple videos for each class since there are multiple standard builds and infinitely many weird builds for a single class, so I would love to hear what kind of weird builds you'd like to see featured in these videos in the comments below. This week's class we're building is the Barbarian. The Barbarian is known as one of the best, if not the best tank class in 5th edition, due in large part to its rage mechanic giving resistance to common damage types. The Barbarian is also known for its incredibly potent bursts of damage, but otherwise is relatively low on the damage per round scale compared to other classes. That said, there's certainly a powerhouse of a tank, a class ripe with roleplay opportunity, and can truly be the bane of a DM's big hitting monster. For these videos, I'm not going to go all the way to level 20 because it's very rare for a campaign to reach that level, and once you get to those stages of the game, it doesn't really matter what you do, you're going to be a god. I'll toss a couple ideas out of things to do, but otherwise I'm going to end the builds at 12th level because the large majority of campaigns end by then. So let's first get into the Barbarian's quick build. Let's start with your stat array. For these videos, I'm just going to be using the standard array because it's standard. You can roll if you want, it'll just change the numbers, but the priority will remain the same. Our priorities with this Barbarian quick build are as follows. First, we want strength. Strength make hit hard, we like hit hard. After that, we want Constitution. Constitution determines our health, and due to Rage giving us resistance to a lot of damage, Barbarians get more value out of raw hit points than any other class in the game. So the more, the merrier. Stack that HP, brother. In addition, Barbarians also get this fancy schmancy feature called Unarmored Defense, which adds our Con modifier to our AC bonus while not wearing armor, so really Barbarians get triple value out of a high Constitution. Our third priority is Dexterity, pretty much just for the AC and to get our Dex saves as high as possible. For our background, let's stick to something simple like Athlete. This grants you proficiency in athletics and acrobatics, so for your barbarian proficiencies, we can take perception and one of the skills other than intimidation because we're going to get that in just a moment. Either way, skill proficiencies aren't really your big focus as a barbarian, so I wouldn't worry too much about them. Athletics is really the big one here from a mechanical standpoint. Now it's time to pick a race. Wizards of the Coast has been adding some optional rule sets that I believe will soon become canon, which will allow you to place that race's stat bonus into whatever ability score you choose while still keeping the racial features, so if you prefer to use that rule, then this choice may not be as important to you, but for this video, I'm just going to stick to the original ruling because it's not quite canon yet. So, we're going to go half-orc. Even ignoring the racial stat bonuses, Half-Orc has features that synergize incredibly well with the Barbarian's kit. Relentless Endurance is going to allow us to take an extra hit without going down, which can be a game changer in the right moments, and Savage Attacks will make our critical strikes more potent, which will become even more relevant a bit later into the Barbarian class. And of course, we're going to add in those racial stat bonuses, increasing our strength to 17 and our constitution to 15. The last thing to do when creating a character is to decide equipment. For this build, we're going to use a Great Axe as our weapon, and that's it. No armor, no shield. And then get a Dungeoneer's pack or whatever, that stuff isn't as important. The reason we want a Great Axe instead of a Greatsword is because of that earlier feature, Savage Attacks, and a Barbarian feature that does the exact same thing. When you critically strike, you add 1 additional weapon die of damage to that attack. For a Greatsword, that's only 1d6 in addition. For a Great Axe, it's an additional d12. So even though the Greatsword has a higher minimum damage, since it deals 2 dice of damage, the Great Axe has a much higher maximum damage when you're playing a half-orc, and even higher when you're playing a half-orc barbarian. Alright, we've got our level 1 character started. The first addition that's going to happen is at 3rd level when you choose your primal path. The Barbarian has tons of great options, but when I think of a Barbarian, I picture a rage machine carving through crowds of goblins in just a few swings. The Barbarian that best captures that to me is the Berserker. Right away, you gain the option to go into a frenzied rage, which gives you an additional attack. This is great. More attacks means more hurt. At 4th level, you're going to raise these pesky odd numbers and your strength and con by 1. Plenty of value comes out of that because it's going to increase your attack and damage bonuses by 1, as well as increasing your max HP by 4. It doesn't sound like much, but it adds up, especially with resistance to damage. At this point, you're just going to keep leveling into Barbarian without having to really add anything. You'll gain extra attack, a bonus to move speed, the Mindless Rage feature from Berserker, and then advantage on initiative rolls. Once you reach 8th level, you're given a choice. Either increase ability scores or take a feat. I'm taking a feat here. Great Weapon Master is a ridiculous damage spike. You can take a -5 to your attack roll to gain a +10 to the damage roll. For most classes, that's a risk, but for Barbarian, that risk is much smaller due to reckless attack. You can gain advantage on every attack if you want, so a -5 to the roll isn't quite so debilitating. Now, you want to talk about damage? Let's talk about next level. At 9th level, you gain Brutal Critical, which you may notice is exactly the same as Savage Attacks. So if you crit at 9th level, you're dealing a d12 plus another d12 for the crit, plus another d12 for Savage Attacks, plus another d12 for Brutal Critical. And if you use Great Weapon Master for that attack, then you add 10. And then you add your Strength modifier, which at this point is 4, and your Rage damage, which is now 3. So if we put that together, that is 4d12 plus 17 damage on a crit. Not too bad. You may be saying, Reese, you only have a 5% chance to crit, so calculating that is pointless. And I'd say, wrong! With Reckless Attack, you roll with advantage. That brings your chance to roll a nat 20 on every single attack to 10%. With Berserker, you can attack 3 times in a turn, which increases your chance to roll a critical strike to 30% every turn. So mathematically speaking, you have just under a 1 in 3 chance to crit every single turn with this build. That 4d12 plus 17 is not an uncommon roll for you by any means. After that, there once again aren't many additions until 12th level, where I recommend increasing your strength up to 20. There are some other helpful feats you could take, but the value you get out of an increase to strength is hard to pass up here. Every addition you can get to attack rolls is super important with Great Weapon Master as your feat. After 12th level, like I said, it doesn't really matter where you go, you're going to be ridiculous no matter what. It's pretty popular to multiclass and to fighter, though I recommend waiting until after 13th level to do that because you get an additional die added to your Brutal Critical. But honestly, staying in Barbarian is a perfectly viable option because their later features are just as powerful as their early ones. So that's the quick build. If you want to play a Barbarian that can hit hard and still be the beefy frontline your adventuring party needs, this build will serve that purpose in spades. And now, it's time to get funky. I'm calling this weird build the Dodge/Damage Mitigation Tank. It rolls off the tongue. You know what you get from the Barbarian base class, so I'm not going to re-explain all that. What I will do is flip this class on its head, starting with stats. Priority this time is Dex, Con, Wisdom. We're doing a Dex-based Barbarian this time. Dexterity increases AC, and even though we won't hit as hard since we won't get to add rage damage, we'll also be using a Dex-based weapon. Constitution is in the same place because health and AC. We'll get to Wisdom later, just know that it does have to be third. For background, we're going to stick with Athlete for the proficiency in acrobatics and athletics. This time, for our Barbarian proficiencies, you can take Intimidation because we aren't going half-orc. We are going Halfling. Stout Halfling, to be exact. For a few different reasons. First of all, you increase your Dex by 2 and Con by 1. Those are our 2 high priority abilities, so that's perfect. Second of all, you get some wild features, namely Halfling Luck. Being able to re-roll natural ones whenever you roll them is just straight up one of the strongest racial features in the game. Halfling Nimbleness is nice too because you can freely move through the spaces of medium-sized creatures, which is likely most of your party. This is a big boost to mobility in combat, especially if you find yourself in a tight squeezing dungeon. Oddly enough, you also have the Brave feature, giving you advantage on saves against being frightened. This is great too, because being frightened as a strictly melee character is debilitating, and we're going strictly melee here. The Stout Halfling specifically also gains Stout Resilience, which grants you advantage on saves against poison and, more importantly, resistance to poison damage, one of the most common damage types in the game. So when you rage, you'll have resistance to physical and poison damage, which is incredible. For starting equipment, we'll be using a rapier and a shield. Yes, you can gain unarmored defense while still using a shield, and no, I did not know that until recently. Again, we won't be able to add rage damage to our attacks since they won't be strength-based, but that's fine. This build isn't looking to max out damage. So, starting out at level 1, our AC is 10, plus Dex, which is 3, plus Con, which is 2, plus 2 from the shield. That's 17. Not bad. Let's level up. At level 3, the primal path you choose is going to be Ancestral Guardian. Ancestral Protectors is a wonderful feature that allows you to protect your allies, granting an enemy you attack disadvantage on attacks against creatures other than yourself, and granting your allies resistance to attacks from those creatures. This is great because it encourages them to attack you, which is exactly what you want with this build, considering you're already very high AC. At 4th level, you're going to take the ability score increase to take your Dex and Con up to 18 and 16 respectively. That means your AC is going to increase by 1 because our Dex mod went up, and another 1 because our Con mod went up. Our total AC now is 19 at 4th level. Spirit Shield at 6th level is going to be another great way for you to reduce damage on another creature, so even if the enemy does start attacking someone else, you can reduce their damage taken by using a reaction. At 8th level, you're going to take the feat Defensive Duelist, allowing you to use your reaction to increase your AC by your proficiency bonus, which at this point is 3. Keep in mind, it's only on a single attack, so it's not nearly as potent as the shield spell, but it's still a pretty good option to be able to bring your AC up to 22 for that attack. Yet another way to dodge an enemy's attack and live the dodge tank dream. At 9th level, you're leaving the Barbarian. Goodbye, Barbarian. Here's why we put our 13 into Wisdom. We are multi-classing into Monk. That's right, because you may not be able to cast spells while raging, but they don't say nothing about using ki. The first thing I must address, no, unarmored defense does not stack, so you don't also get to add your wisdom modifier to your AC, you just use whichever is higher. In this case, it's still our con. So, we're a barbarian monk now. Not a whole lot of benefit from monk at level 1, but at level 2, we get ki. And there's this cute little ability we can use with ki called Patient Defense, allowing us to use 1 ki point to take the dodge action as a bonus action. Dodge Tank Dream. Unfortunately for our purposes, we won't be gaining the unarmored movement speed from the monk class unless we drop our shield, but dropping our shield is pretty anti-Dodge Tank Dream, so we're not going to do that. At 11th level, we're going into monk again. This is when we choose our monastic tradition, and for this build, we're going to do the Way of the Long Death. Honestly, the first feature from this is just meh, so it's probably more efficient to just drop back into Barbarian here, but that's not the point. We're not going for efficiency. All we want to do is live the Dodge Tank Dream. Because at 12th level, we're going into Monk again and raising our Dex to 20. That makes our AC 20 at base. You also gain Slow Fall at this level, which isn't really Dodge Tank Dream, but we will still happily take it. If you do end up taking this build to 20, I personally would keep building into Monk. The reason is, at level 19, you'll be 11th level in Monk, which means you'll get the Way of Long Death's ability to spend 1 ki point to stay at 1 HP instead of falling unconscious when you get hit. You'll have 1 level left over if you do, so probably just drop that into Barbarian for the D12 hit die. I'd also recommend to take the tough feat somewhere along the way to make up for the lower hit dice of the Monk levels, and you will be living the beefy frontline dodge tank damage mitigation dream all the way to level 20. And that is the weird build. That's all for this week. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what classes you'd like to see next, or any ideas you have for new, weird barbarian builds. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you around.